The RuneScape market this month is a month of extremes, with so many changes being proposed from runefest to blog reworks to new meta-defining items. There's so much going on. We have some items that are absolutely cratering, while some are also shooting up due to some new updates. There's a lot to cover this month, but as always, the RuneScape economy is once again kind of wild. So one thing I've noticed this month is we have a bit of a graveyard of some totally dead items, and some have really flatlined this month in particular for a whole host of different reasons. Now let's start with the Dragon Hunter Wand. I think most people will know why this item has absolutely tanked over the last couple of months, and that is because it has almost zero practical use. It was made to complete the trio of the Dragon Hunter weapons, but in reality it's just an extremely nerfed version of it because it drops from an early game boss. It's not better at all, it's not better against most dragons even, so because of that it is continually crashed, really only being perked up by the rarity of the item. This month though it is plopped down to about 10 mil for a Dragon Hunter weapon. Pretty wild, considering the other two are like 50-60 mil at least. The Huicatl Hide armor has absolutely cratered. Back in December it was a 7 mil item, this month it is 1.5 mil. For similar reasons, this is just a glorified God D'hide body, while being quite a bit more difficult to obtain for most people. Oh, this one hurts. The Ring of Endurance, oh my god, this thing has absolutely cratered. Even a year ago, this thing was still worth about 30 mil, and now I think it hit as low as like 5 mil. It's rough. I mean, this thing was pretty irrelevant for years now, but the final nail in the coffin was the run energy changes, which made this ring entirely irrelevant. Now, the run energy changes are amazing. I would sacrifice this ring any day of the week, but unfortunately, it's made the Hallowed Sepulchre not very profitable anymore. But unless they rework this thing, it's probably going to go down to next to nothing. Another iconic item that has crashed a lot is the Rapier, which fell under 40 mil, overtaken by even the Noxious Halberd, which is fair because the Halberd has a lot more use cases now than the Rapier. And also partly with how expensive the scythe is, more people start grinding out the Theater of Blood, and most people are doing it for the mega rare. So the more skewed the price gets towards one item in a raid or something like that, the more farmed the lower tier items end up getting. Also, the Sang took a big hit this week as well, and we'll get into that in a minute. The Sang dropped about 20% just yesterday. Okay, so yesterday we finally got a update on the Delve boss rewards, and they got pretty heavily reworked, although one of them is still the same. Well, the one reward they kept was the Avernic Treads. They reworked it slightly so you can slowly add component pieces to it instead of requiring them all at once, and mainly just the fact that the idea is not gone at all, which I don't think there was ever any indication that they were getting rid of it, but I think a lot of people assumed that for some reason. The Eternals have jumped up from about 6.5 mil to 8 mil. The Pegasians have jumped up a bit as well, and the Primordials have also gone up a bit as well. Now the Avernic Treads V2 or V7, I don't even know what one we're on, is pretty similar, but there's a key difference, and that is that it doesn't bottleneck the individual items as hard. Because the boots drop in a powerful form to begin with, and you're slotting in the boots one by one, you don't specifically need the Pegasian boots to get the bonuses from adding the Eternal boots or the Primordial boots. So it's not bottlenecking things as hard, which I think has caused the price to not go up as much as it did just from speculation. However, one of the new rewards is going to be an upgrade to the Tormented Bracelet, and immediately it shot up by 3 or 4 mil, which is a lot for a Zenyte item, but immediately crashed back down. Zenytes aren't going to ever get pushed up that much because they're all tied together, but now with the Tormented Bracelet having an upgrade and the Torture having an upgrade, and realistically we're probably getting a Zenyte Anguish upgrade eventually, Zenytes have been hitting all-time highs as well. Look, just this year they got pushed up to 20 mil plus just from Araxor, and now we have another Zenyte upgrade. And the final notable item they proposed is a mage upgrade, a one-handed mage weapon that's going to sit somewhere between the Sang Staff and the Shadow. Now, this is an entirely standalone drop, but because it is a one-handed weapon, we can use offhands. So offhands like the Arcane have shot up by about 10-15% so far. The Elidness Ward is kind of all over the place. I don't think people know what to do with this one, but it's also shot up a bit as well. But overall, you can really tell the difference between a blog that Jagex drops totally out of the blue, like the first Yama boss, and a blog like this one, which has been somewhat known about even if people didn't know the specifics. Now, a good example of a totally out of the blue change is to the Noxious Halberd. Now, the Noxious Halberd went up to a peak of 60 mil in March, and that's because of one very small change from a small section of the Summer Summit, the Summer Sweep Up. The Summer Sweep Up is essentially just a mini project rebalance, and they're making some changes to halberds in particular, as well as elemental weaknesses, alongside some other drop table reworks as well. Now, the change they're going to make for the halberd is to add range to it to make it work at places like Zulrah, and probably some other notable locations as well. Now, this caused the price to shoot up very quickly, but you'll notice this week it's also tanked just as quickly. There's a lot of hype for this update, but I think the reality is we just don't really know where this will be useful. They mentioned Zulrah, and we can take their word for that, but is the Noxious Halberd being good at Zulrah worth a nearly doubling of its price? Definitely not. And another item that shot up due to the Summer Sweep Up is the Harmonized Orb. Pretty much you just mention elemental weakness and this thing shoots up. The Harmonized Orb went from 400 mil up to 500 mil just in March, but once again, starting to fall down again. Really, we have no clue how much they're going to change elemental weaknesses. As they currently stand, there's just not enough monsters of consequence that have elemental weaknesses. So unless they add it to something really notable, then I don't see the Harmonized Orb being a meta-defining change. So looking at some cheaper items, one interesting one is Blood Runes. Now, Blood Runes have gone up a lot in the last couple of months, up to 300 GP each, and there's a couple reasons for that. Firstly, the Scythe. The Scythe always will push Blood Runes up. But beyond that, they do actually specifically mention the Blood Rune in the Summer Sweep Up. Essentially, they're wanting to reduce the amount of resources produced by some PVM encounters. And although they're probably not just talking about Blood Runes, that's the one they mentioned in the blog, which I think has caused the price to go up a lot. I mean, Blood Runes going up by 30-40% in 3 months is kind of crazy. Another item that's kind of been all over the place this month is the Enhanced Seed, going from 1700 up to 2300 or so, crashing back down again. I mean, this item is pretty much entirely dictated by bots. However, an interesting development is that recently they made it so you don't need to corrupt your BOFA. You can just slowly add charges to it and it'll corrupt over time. In reality, I don't think this actually affects the item price that much, as this is more so tied to divine potions and botting activity more so, but definitely an interesting item to track. Another item on the rise this month, Snapegrass Seeds, which have actually tripled since 2025 started. Not really a huge explanation there, just thought it was interesting. The Huasca Seed peaked up to almost 200k this month, pretty much just as fast, crashed back down to 60k, with a notable increase in trade volume, you'll notice. Now, whether that's just bots or more people doing Huicadl, hard to say, but there's no doubt there is a bit of a bottleneck on this item. If you look at the Goading Potion, which is not even made from the Huasca Seeds, you'll notice it kind of follows a similar trajectory. I just don't really know how many players like doing Mastering Mixology. Is it mostly bot run? I don't know. Now, one of the biggest upcoming updates that is going to be pretty meta-defining, I think, for the next couple of years is a new boss, Yama. Yama drops a few very powerful pieces of equipment that has caused some pretty big ripples in the market. Specifically, I'm talking about the Soul Armor set, which is a side grade to Torva, and the Soul Flame Horn. Now, the Soul Armor set is kind of like Torva, but you'd really mostly use it with a slash weapon. This is due to its ginormous slash accuracy that the armor set provides, with a moderately lower strength bonus. So straight off the bat, this has had a huge effect on the Scythe. I'm sure you've seen people talking about it. The Scythe peaked up to nearly 2 bill a week ago, which is wild when you think about it. Having an item, especially a mega rare, get close to max cash is interesting, because there's one thing to have like a 3rd H pickaxe be traded outside the Grand Exchange. Nobody really needs that, but a Scythe, that's a really commonly used weapon, and if you have to go to a third-party forum, trade it outside the Grand Exchange, this is definitely going to cause some problems. Now, the Scythe has jumped up a lot because paired with the Soul Armor, this will outcompete Torva. Essentially, the Scythe loves more accuracy, So it is a pretty significant buff to the scythe, which has already seen a ton of love in the last couple of years. Another item that's shot up a lot is the Bellator ring, kind of for a similar reason. This is the side grade to the Altar ring that gives more slash accuracy at the cost of some strength bonus. It's essentially the exact same design as the new armor set. The Bellator's gone up a lot since January, is almost doubled at this point. Now another item, the Soul Reaper Axe, which of course as soon as I think I might want to save up for this item, it shoots up by 30-40%, going from 380 mil back in January up to, I think it peaked at like 500 mil, yeah. Now I think this mostly comes down to the fact that as the scythe gets more out of reach, the Soul Reaper becomes more appealing as a solid stepping stone. Now the Tormented Synapse is another item that shot up a lot. Yama is undoubtedly a demon, so the Synapse weapons appear like they will be incredibly good there. There is one small caveat though, is that if they do something like they did with Duke, where they just make the Demon Bane weapons not effective, which I think is really stupid, honestly. It doesn't really make sense. I guess the fear is that if the Emberlight competes too closely with the Scythe won't be best in slot at one piece of content. Oh no. That's okay, I'm just salty, I don't have one. But unless something changes, you would assume the Emberlight, the Scorching Bow, and even the Purging Staff could be good at Yama. Now another item that has shot up a lot this month is Burning Claws, mostly because once again it could be incredibly strong at Yama. Burning Claws are more effective against demons, and we're pretty much 100% sure Yama is a demon. Honestly, a lot of spec weapons have gone up a lot. Both Burning Claws and Dragon Claws have shot up a lot this month, with Burning Claws going from 16 mil up to 20 mil in the last couple of weeks. Dragon Claws also have spiked up about 10-15 mil in March so far. Honestly, across the board, if you look at most melee armor, it's gone up a lot. The Altar ring is up about 20 mil this month, and the Amulet of Rancor is also trending upwards ever since the new year. Now Torva is one of the few melee items that is not actually trending upwards from this update, mostly because the soul armor is going to be competing with this. I think most people are assuming that the soul armor will be much more common than Torva, so it might be getting devalued a little bit. But monsters that have lower defenses, Torva should still be better, even with a scythe. So it's a little early to say, but Torva has been taking a hit for a while. It's actually down a lot on the year. Last year was about 430 mil for the plate body. Now it's, it went down to as low as 300 mil. Plate legs have dropped 30-40 mil this month, and the full helm once again down about the similar amount, 10-15%. Now the other major item that is coming from the new Yama boss is the Soul Flame Horn. This is a really interesting spec weapon that will guarantee your next melee attack of you and your allies will hit. You get 100% increased accuracy, and assuming you're attacking an NPC, the boosted hit splat will always hit, which is particularly useful for defense draining spec weapons, and maybe even other spec weapons in general. So because of this, items like the Elder Maul have gone up about 10-15% as well, and the Dragon Warhammer has also shot up about 20%. And of course, we're gonna look at the bond. Always, we gotta look at the bond. It's actually kind of stagnated for pretty much all of 2025, which is impressive. But pretty much since the summer, this gigantic, unrelenting price increase has kind of paused. Honestly, it kind of looks like the real stock market graph. But that wouldn't really make any sense at all. Anyway, guys, hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching as always, and I will see you next time.